Opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. God, I don't believe it. I forgot to turn the camera on. What the hell? Someone should just take me behind this shed and shoot me and put me out of my misery. Howdy, everybody. It's Thursday night, June 18th, 2026. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 364, if you're keeping score at home. Our guest tonight is Andrew Fox. He is the priest at Christ Our Savior Anglican Church in Georgetown, Texas. And he also runs a couple for-profit, non-religious businesses. And he has a book coming out called Truth in the Age of Applause, How Stupidity is Ruining the American Dream. We've taped this already. I have to tell you, this is a fascinating conversation. I highly suggest you stick around to watch and listen to all of it. So, yeah. That's and then we're done for the week. We don't do Fridays here, and we're taking next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off. We had Tuesday long planned, but we're taking Monday and Wednesday off too. And on next Thursday, we're actually doing a double show. We have two guests. We're having on economist Rainier Zeidelman is going to be talking about his new book. His second appearance on the show. And Ralph Bisaglia is the CEO of the American Transportation Insurance Company. And they insure most of the taxi drivers and Uber drivers in New York City. And we're going to talk to him about what's going on in New York. That should be, I asked for him to come on because I'm just really interested in this topic. So two guests next Thursday. And then we're taking the entirety of the following week, which is the July 4th week off. So I'll let you know. And also tonight on TikTok, we got to do another TikTok live at 10 p.m. Eastern again. This is going to be our seventh show, I think, that we've done live show. And I have to say the crowds and the reception has been very, very good. Last Thursday, we got over 27,000 likes for the 1 hour we did. So, and we can't go over an hour. It's an hour. You stop by. I say hello, we talk, I might have a few questions for the crowd, and you guys answer back, and it's generally a good time. So on Monday, we had about 2,000 likes, but still, pretty cool. So this is the Jimcast, and I tell you about what you need to know. Now, Trump signed this agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the country of Iran. The people are very divided on whether this whole thing whether we got our use out of this or not. It's really amazing how, and the thing is, it's all over the spectrum. Newt Gingrich, he thinks it was a good thing. He says it might not have been perfect, but under the circumstances, you can't expect any better. Here's the amazing thing: Hillary Clinton got up in front of her crowd yesterday and actually said, "I'm paraphrasing, but almost quoting her off the top of my head." She says, "Don't be alarmed. I'm going to say something nice about Donald Trump." And she went on to praise it. She didn't actually say this, but based on what she said, it's obvious she was implying that she thinks this is the single best thing Donald Trump's ever done. She thought this agreement was fantastic. And I mean, this woman's probably has only said one good positive thing about Donald Trump other than this in the last 15 years, So she liked it. Lindsey Graham liked it. and especially Rand Paul. And Rand Paul seems to never be happy about anything. They thought same thing. They thought it was fantastic, terrific. Some people have been a little more shady. Batya was Sargon, who the woman who does the weekend show on News Nation. She thought it was atrocious. She thinks it's a catastrophe. Dwayne Patterson, who writes for my favorite publication, Hot Air, he basically called balls and strikes, and he came to the conclusion, as a few others did, that it's not perfect, but it's not bad either. And my best friend, my boyfriend, David Strom over at Hot Air, he said the same thing. He said it's a disaster, but it's the best you could do under the circumstances. And also, David talked about this and other people did too, but I'm going to lay into this a little more. It's pretty obvious to me that Trump came to the conclusion that if he didn't do something relatively quickly, the midterms were going to turn into a disaster because the economy would collapse. I mean, he said this basically at a press conference yesterday in France. He said that if we didn't wrap this up quickly, it would have been, he called it an economic catastrophe. And also, not just for the United States, basically the whole world. People are looking at worldwide economic disaster because of the Iran situation if something wasn't done here. And also, of course, he's thinking about, if he loses both the houses of Congress this fall, the rest of his term is basically wasted, done. And I think he came to the conclusion he wasn't willing to do that. Also, there's another thing too. I'm not the only person to say this. It's not even really a treaty or an agreement. It's basically a ceasefire. It's a fancy ceasefire. The only of the 14 points in the agreement, the only single thing that seems to be ironclad is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. On that, Trump is absolutely insistent. But even that, they're going to spend 60 days now negotiating exactly what the check and verifications are going to be. So even that's kind of dicey, although that's the only part he's absolutely, he said no, under no circumstances. And that does seem that was the point to begin with. But the rest of it, what I actually think is going to happen, I'm putting on my speculation cap here, is I think that and I'm talking about the American government now, not the Iranians, that the Trump administration will ride this out through November, through the midterm elections, and Iran, like somebody said, this agreement is almost an invitation for them to violate it, and they will violate it because they don't know any different. That's all they know how to do. This country does not make agreements. They don't do that. They make them and they break them. They've done that forever. It's even supposedly that's one of their tactics. That's even like hardwired into their playbook. I think Trump will, and they will break the agreement. Trump will go back and forth, yada-da-da-da-da-da. We'll have the midterm elections. Gas prices will be down for sure. And right after the midterm elections, they'll bomb the crap out of them. I think they'll basically finish the job militarily. That's what I think. We'll see. Now, I said a couple of all the things I've talked about here in 364 shows, I'm astonished. This got more comments than any other thing I've ever talked about. And that's the thing I said about 10 days ago about gas prices. And what I said was that what's going to happen, I predicted then, is that gas prices are going to go through the roof because the worldwide petroleum reserves, not just of countries, but even of the private corporations, the major oil companies, has basically gone down to zero. So there was no reserve oil. So it was basically going to be priced on a per, as is basis, and it was just going to skyrocket. And I got that from the CEO of Exxon, and some people said I didn't understand. I had a few people say, "Now, all right, this is understanding. No, they're price gouging. Okay, maybe they are. That might be true, But there's other people just told me I was just plain wrong. I thought, well, no, that's basic economics, isn't it? I did not think this was not, we're not talking about the trans ideology or any. This is like just gas prices. But now, what the CEO of Exxon said at that time, he said, even if the war ended before the end of this month, which at least for the time being seems to be true, he said it would take 4 months for gas prices to get back to normal. Normal being under $3, which is where they were in February. And I have what's happened since then too, what I didn't know at that time and nobody knew, which the administrator said about a week later, is they have been clandestinely getting tankers through the Iranian blockade, and they're doing it. It's so simple, it's unbelievable. You turn your lights off, you turn your transponder off, and you go in the middle of the night. And who I think that just seems childish to me, but apparently that worked. And all sorts of tankers got through. Apparently, about 7 million gallons of oil a day got through the Strait of Hormuz using that method alone. So between those two things, I am rescinding my prediction. I do not think the price. I mean, the price of gas might go up temporarily a little bit. I think the price of oil today at the close of market was 73 a gallon, I think. So the price of oil is going down. The price of gas is still climbing a little bit from what I understand, but it will by October it should be down to a really reasonable level. And reasonable is about $3 or less, I figure. It's about today I think it was 406 if I'm right. So that's what I think's going on here. I think they know Iran's going to violate the agreement, and they're just going to play patsy with them until November, and then just go in and just crap all over this place. That's my theory. So we'll see if I'm right. But like I said, I'm rescinding my prediction on the oil prices because of new information. Okay. All right. So here's what might also raise its ugly price head in the next few months. The price of iPhones and basically all Apple products they are going to go through the roof because there's not enough computer memory to go around the world. And so and Tim Cook has said they're trying to figure out how to keep the price down, but they won't figure it out. They won't because there's a serious shortage of memory chips worldwide, or there's going to be. And part of the reason is AI, the AI data centers. As a matter of fact, if I were you, if you have any extra money, I would invest in the chip makers, NVIDIA, Intel, Micron. They're slammed for product. Totally. Unbelievable. Now, I don't know about the actual memory makers, chip makers, because that could go either way. The demand is huge, and on the other hand, there's no supply either. So I don't know about the actual people who manufacture the CPU chips. Oh man, just go to town on that. I normally don't talk about personality and celebrity gossip on the show, but I want to mention this, and that is Olivia. This is in Fox News today. Olivia Wilde, the actress, is speaking out about the exact moment she knew her relationship with Jason Sudeikis was over. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't care. Why is this in the news? It's like I do not give a crap. I don't. And I don't want to know. I mean, this is the type of stuff. Why do I have to know about your personal life? Why? Now I understand it gets clicks. The young girls probably love this stuff. I don't want to know. I don't want to know why you're leaving your husband. Well, actually, they're not married, but still, it's like, do I need to be pummeled with your personal information? This all and here's my last thing today. This all segues in our conversation with Dr. Fox. Steven Spielberg's the disclosure day. The thing that people seem to be talking about a lot is that it really deals with how extraterrestrialism is going to deal with Christianity, or how people are going to deal with both of those concepts. Now, I've been on the show a long time. I'm saying that if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, extraterrestrials coming from another planet shouldn't change that at all. It shouldn't. But people are gonna, I don't even know. I should have even asked Dr. Fox. Is there anywhere in the Bible where it says that we're the only people in the universe? I don't think there is. One does not necessarily negate the other, but a lot of people are going to question their faith by this happening. I know that, you know. And then, and the reason I've talked about this previously is the Catholic Church has really made an effort to get in front of this. For years, they've been having seminars and proclamations. The popes have made proclamations. The chief astronomer of the Vatican, there is one. They have 2 observatories, one really good one in Arizona, USA. Discussing this subject. This is not an either or situation, but a lot of people are going to, and apparently I haven't seen the film yet. Apparently the film actually addresses this. And a lot of people thought that was actually the takeaway of the whole thing. It's going to be, it's going to be interesting. More and more, one of the reviewers said the timing could not have been more perfect on this film. And is that coincidence or is that deliberate? There's been rumors for years that Spielberg has actually regularly been talking to people at the Pentagon and the Defense Department about the UFO issue. That was rumored when he made Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, this is not confirmed. There's been a rumor for years that the Pentagon pays people in the creative community to create UFO related media. So, maybe I don't know. The timing is awfully prescient. That's for damn sure. All right. That's my 2 bits for tonight. Stick around for this. This is shit. This is Dr. Andrew Fox, and we had a fantastic conversation here. So check it out. That'll start right now. Howdy ho, everybody. Our guest tonight is Andrew Fox. He's the priest at Christ Our Savior Anglican Church in Georgetown, Texas. He also is the CEO of a consulting firm called Cultural Clarity, and he owns the Fox Realty Brokerage in Austin, and he's a really busy man, and he joins us from Georgetown, Texas here. Hi, Andrew. How you doing?
Good to be with you, Jim.
How do you do all that stuff?
Well, years ago, I elected not to receive an income from the church, so monies could actually go to where it should be, and keep my foot in the marketplace. And it's a great balance. It keeps you real as a priest. You realize your congregation, they go to work Monday morning, and they get home late at night, and so do I. And if they do, so will I. That's always been my philosophy.
Is the Anglican Church and the Episcopal Church the same thing?
It used to be up to 1992, and then they went their separate ways, where the ACNA was formed, the Anglican Church in North America.
What was the issue, or was it just?
It was over same-sex marriage, the ordination of a homosexual bishop, and a number of other things in that kind of category. The Anglican Church said, nope, we don't want anything to do with that. And it maintains that moral compass today.
So you have a new book coming out, and this is the reason I wanted you on the show. The book is called Truth in the Age of Applause, How Stupidity is Ruining the American Dream. And I talk about this so much, Andrew, you don't even know. Your book's coming out, you think, about September, right?
About September, yeah.
Going through the passage right now. Now, in your publicity material, what I noticed is that you have a very specific definition you're using for the word stupidity. What is that?
It comes from Dietrich Bonhoeffer from the Second World War, who was sadly executed by Adolf Hitler and his regime just months before the end of the war. He was, Jim, one of the only theologians that really spoke up against the genocide that the Nazis were committing, along with many other non-German traditional things back in that day. But his definition of stupidity, to your point, was not the lack of knowledge or intelligence or experience, but it was to admit you have knowledge and experience and yet you go with the flow, abandoning any moral, independent judgment or thought that would tell you this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, but just to go with the flow, like the blind leading the blind. And I couldn't think, when I was writing this, a more accurate definition of the blind leading the blind. And like hordes of cattle, you just go along with the cultural norms of the day without independently questioning it. And of course, in my world, I question many things. A biological man that wants to be a woman, I question that, along with many other issues. And so Bonhoeffer was saying, don't give up your independent thought. And I would say the same to my audience today, as well as yours. Is
well, you were just talking about the fact that having these actual for-profit businesses keeps you balanced and lets you relate to the congregation. In defense of the congregation, or playing the devil's advocate here, no pun intended, a lot of people have a lot of stuff on their plate every day, and they don't have a lot of time to devote to a lot of things. And that lends up, in my business, we call that the low information voter, but that's not necessarily a sin, is it? I mean, No, I think, I'm in my 50s. When I was a boy growing up in England, and it was very much the same over here in North America, you went to church on Sunday. You didn't cut the grass. You didn't do your shopping or anything. That was kind of frowned on. There was a midweek service. There was a youth service. There was a Bible study. There was a prayer meeting and everything. Well, you've got to just look at the population, what's happening, the demands in the marketplace, and the church must follow suit. You can't increase people's schedules by having meeting after meeting after meeting just for the sake of it. You've got to have that independent thought, but realize who you're actually ministering to as a priest. Kids get out of school, they're in sports programs, they're in music programs, it costs a lot of money. And if we want to produce great human beings, these things are necessary. So the church must flow with it. How did you get called to the priesthood?
Well, I have no one in my family that is clergy, going back all the way to the 1600s, where my genealogy shows there was a Church of England vicar in the 1600s. I'm the only other one. It was during my time in a local church, I felt a calling, a vocation to take up that role of a shepherd. And according to the scriptures, whoever God calls, he equips. And so, prayer life and devotion is necessary to maintain that. But the shepherd's heart, that's my calling. That's my vocation. And that's why I moved to the United States as well.
And you've written 4 books previous to this one that's coming up. What prompted you to write this one? Did something happen, or was there a...
That's a good question, Jim. I was the lead chaplain for the Austin Fire Department for just under 9 years. And it takes a lot to get in there, about 2 years of earning your way into the culture. And in that paramilitary world, you're accepted when they're rude and sarcastic to you. Then you're one of them. And the more abuse you get verbally, the more you are one of them. And it was a wonderful time.
Hey, hold on. I got a question. What is it about guys? We do that as a sign of affection. I've always tried to figure out why. Because it's a sign of affection. If guys rib you, and I've always wondered, where did that come from? Do you ever have any idea on that?
I don't know the origins of it, but I know I'm heartfelt and warmly welcome when those things are flying around the room.
Yeah.
It's not something you can do on a Sunday.
No. No, absolutely not. I'm going to do that from the pulpit. No.
Well, I was with these 1,400 uniformed men and women and the civilians that work there, as well as the community. And independent of that, I wrote a blog called Willie Woke and the Chocolate Factory. And I questioned biological men transitioning to become women. Competing against women as a woman is yet another onslaught of the beauty, of what God created in a woman. And LBGTQ got hold of my blog and forced the city of Austin to terminate me. And just before they terminated me, they said, if you write an open letter of apology to the city of Austin, the LGBTQ community, we may forgive you. And that took root in me. I came to this country on a religious workers visa with the limitations of it. I then became a green card, permanent residence, and I'm very proudly a citizen of the United States now, along with all of my family, and all the privileges that come with that. I have a file, Jim, in my filing cabinet from President Obama. It was the statutory letter in the time that I became a citizen, saying, welcome to our country. You're now a citizen, pay your taxes, speak English, contribute, worship here, live here, raise your kids here, enjoy the freedoms that we have here, constitutional freedoms. And then when this blog worked against me, I was terminated for the freedom of speech, for articulating my thoughts.
Yeah.
And that there are many battles you walk away from in life, many. They're not worth it. This took root in me. I didn't move from the UK for LGBTQ to say, you got to keep your Christian thoughts to a Sunday morning. Don't you dare breathe them outside of a church. That's not American. And that got to the heart of me. And over 4 years, I fought that with the help of the Alliance Defending Freedom, and the city conceded just before it went to public trial and settled with me. Now, it wasn't for vast amounts of money. It was for the right of the Christian voice, which is very...
You didn't get your job back, did you?
I didn't want it back. The department had become so woke. When I joined the fire department as their chaplain, it was difficult to get in. 3,000 would apply to become a firefighter, and 300 would qualify, and 100 of those would get in. Right now, today, there are over 80 open spaces in the fire department. It's as though everyone's like, not going to play this game.
Right.
Not going to play the woke game.
Yeah.
When your house is on fire, no one cares who you're sleeping with or even what you believe.
Right. That's absolutely true. Many people have said that. That's absolutely right. If your house is on fire, you want to get rescued, period.
I miss my friends in the fire department, and I miss that camaraderie of sarcasm.
Yeah. Let me ask you for a little clarification here. I mean, because I talk about this on this about that subject on the show regularly. First of all, the vast majority of the public, like 90% plus, agrees that trans women shouldn't be in women's sports. Everyone,
right.
Virtually everybody thinks that's unfair. I personally don't have any problem with a man who wants to live as a woman, but the problem is there's now the thing that living like a woman is not being a woman. You're still not a woman, you know?
Right.
And what's your thoughts about that? I mean, if a man in your parish, if he's presenting as a woman, what do you think of that?
I'm with you. You, not just in the United States, but if you want to identify as something, that's your right to do that. I'm governed by something that came way before me, and that is the scriptures. Those scriptures can be very distorted to justify our actions and our behavior. But I think, to your point, in the academic world, I've taught in 3 prestigious universities. The faculty, some were gay, some were lesbian. In the student body, in your class, at least a third were not heterosexual, but identified in some other way. And I found myself living what the scriptures tell me, that Jesus said, you got to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he said, upon these 2 things depend all the law and the prophets. In other words, on those 2 things depend everything else in the Bible. And I found in my heart, I didn't care who the student was sleeping with or how they identified. They were in my class to learn, and I was going to help them. And like heterosexuals, you don't walk up to someone and say, how often do you sleep with your wife? That's no one's business.
No.
But the thing I object to is when somebody wants to identify a certain way, all of the cultural norms and even the law of nature, or the nature of law itself, it defies everything in terms of medicine. If you're on the operating table and you're having surgery, I don't care if you identify as a woman, you're being operated on as a man.
That's right. Exactly.
And so there's implications to changing your identity, as there are in a much lesser way if I change my religion from Christianity to Islam. There'd be great implications. But this gender identity, or the gender politics, gender dysphoria, I also do believe it is a fad and a fashion to gain attention. And especially in athletics, it's just deplorable.
Oh, the men who are doing it in athletics, that's completely sick.
Yeah.
That is. I mean, that's all there's to it. I mean, there's no other way to describe that, I think. But
Well, you're listening to congressional hearings of intelligent congressmen and congresswomen asking other intelligent people, can a man conceive a child and carry a child like a woman inside of him? And that's the stuff of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
Wow. Who'd have thought that these would be serious questions? Who'd have thought we would have to have sanitary towel products in boys' bathrooms? It is the stuff of Monty Python in England and Saturday Night Live in the States.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes, what does the rest of the world think about it?
Yeah. And also the first part of the actual title of your book is Truth in the Age of Applause. And you're talking about the fact now that, well, you tell me if I'm wrong, about the fact that a lot of this is happening just because people want attention.
They do. And applause makes it plausible.
Right.
I could be in a public gathering as a keynote speaker and announce that I've been married 34 years. People will spontaneously applaud. Well, why? Out of those 34 years,
because it's a long haul, Andrew.
at least there are chunks of those 34 years where we've not been in love.
Yeah,
we've been dutifully bound to each other and loyal to each other. But make no mistake, there's been plenty of fights in 34. Why are people applauding then? Are they applauding you for getting through it, or?
Well, I've been married 37, and I totally understand what you're talking about. Although I, just talking about the spiritual aspect of it, the marital vows, I think, are really prescient of the fact you're with somebody for sickness or health, or better or worse. I mean, that's kind of I think that's the idea, and I don't know. I think solid people give up too early. That's what I think,
So you've only got to go to the Golden Globes, the Oscars, or the Emmys, music or film or industry, and some celebrity will make some wild statement about transgenderism, and everyone's standing on their feet with spontaneous applause, and it goes on. It doesn't make what they said true.
Yeah.
That's my point. Truth is truth. It neither needs our contribution or our objection. Truth is transcendent. It was there before we were. It'll be there after we are there. There's nothing more beautiful than a man and a woman becoming husband and wife and bringing new life into the world. That is truth. Statisticians will tell you the best and well-adjusted children are those who have a father and mother. But even then, there's no guarantees.
That's right.
It's just hard work. And so truth endures. I'm 58 years of age. I go to the gym 4 times a week. Oh, my goodness. My workouts have become more strenuous because I'm getting older. There's truth. All these 65-year-old men that are toned and ripped, I think they spend $500 a month on steroids. That's not natural.
Well, I'm 70, and I think the amount of time spent isn't natural either. I mean, that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. I mean, I stopped working out 3 or 4 years ago, and I regret it. I got to get back into it. But the amount of time a lot of people spend on it, it's like, you could do a lot more productive things. And then, you wonder if, like, if I work out for an hour, do I extend my life for an hour? But the thing is, it's like working out is boring.
You got to liven it up. I go when the middle-aged men are there. I feel more comfortable. You mentioned the book. The book is 17 chapters that actually show you in school districts, in corporations, even in churches, and definitely in government, how language has changed, and then language is enforced with policy, and how there is penalties for any dissent from that language. And it shows you how things creep in. And the final few chapters are how to withstand that and say no more. But if you're doing that, there is risk with it.
So do you agree with a lot of people think that the reason people are trying to change the language is to control the culture? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, but partially. But here's the reality is, when Johann Gutenberg produced the first printing press, right about the time of the Reformation, reading and words became very, very serious. That's where you got your King James Bible, thee, thou, right, and thus. And a quick study of typology, the study of words, the origin of words, will show you it takes about 100 years to change the meaning of a word for that meaning now to become normal in society through literature, the read word and the spoken word. What the governor in New York did, she did in 1 week, changing mother to gestating parent.
Yeah.
Just in the time scales. It's laughable.
Well, I mean, to your point, they're forcing it. That's the thing. I mean, it's under a natural circumstance, it would take 100 years. They're forcing it. They're forcing the change. And I think people should just, first of all, it's laughable. Like you said, it's Monty Python stuff, but a lot of people don't seem to see it that way.
Well, the implications in medicine, what are you going to do when somebody gives birth? Congratulate them as a gestating human being.
Yeah, I know. They're right. That's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right out of a John Cleese sketch.
Oh, yeah. And then there's Mother's Day cards.
Yeah.
The whole billion-dollar industry there. You can't do that overnight. And so once you made that announcement in New York, the applause was massive. The applause doesn't make it true.
Yeah, well, it's there's a lot of people, it's what's a term? It's on the top of my head. I can't think of it. But just get back to the trans people, though. The one thing that I found amazing about this is that there's so incredibly few of them, and yet this whole thing around 2020 just raised its, for lack of a better term, ugly head, and got forced on the populace. It's like, we're going to deal with this trans issue. And for most people, 95% of Americans or the world, there is no trans issue. It's like, no one really thought about this, And other than the sports issue, I don't think most people care either.
No. I mean, one of my good friends, she's a retired OBGYN, and she took early retirement. She got so fed up of it, Jim. She would have men come to her clinic and ask for a pap smear and medication for period cramps. And these are men.
Yeah.
And she said, I can't do it anymore. Now,
right.
If she refused them, she might lose her license. So she got out of it. She was so fed up with it. And she's made some good money, so she could retire. But the implications of changing language are far, far reaching.
Yeah, you okay? So now I got to look at I didn't actually write down the name of this book. It's terrible. You wrote a book called "Becoming Us from Yes to Forever" about weddings, right? Now, the reason I'm particularly fascinated with this, Andrew, is you said at the very beginning that you had, up to that time of publication, you had officiated 575 weddings.
Yes.
I was a wedding DJ, and I DJ'd about that many weddings, and
yes.
I have besides the fact I have stories, I have made grand generalizations about this whole thing. So, from a cleric standpoint, what are your generalizations about weddings?
Well, for a start, I have a very good bishop that allows me to do weddings outside the parish. A very good thinker, because getting married is a Christian thing. It in the scriptures, it came before everything. It was God's idea. So what I thought was, after all of these years and all of these weddings, what would a camera have to say? What would the flowers have to say if they could speak? What would the wine that we toast with have to say? What would the seats that we sit on have to say? What would the mirror that the bride looks into at a wedding dress? And it's the same mirror that she grew up with as a little girl. So the mirror is telling a story. And what I do is, in that book, is create, there's about 15 poems from the perspective of people and objects at a wedding that are unrepeatable. And so, the mirror tells the story of through poetry of a little girl becoming a woman, and now she's going to transform from bride to wife, and it finishes with, what will she be as his wife? And so I send them out as gifts to all kinds of wedding vendor kind of people. It's available on Amazon. It's a great read. It's for the divorced, letting them know there's still someone there for them. It's for the widow to remember when. It's for the single person to know the future is ahead of them. And it's for the newly married, for just to remember that day. And especially for those that are married with children that seem to forget the vows that they have taken. So it's a fun, emotional, thoughtful read that really touches the heart.
A friend of mine, he's a theater director, and he was talking to me about the fact that he said he ended up incorporating this into some of his classroom teaching, about the fact that how important ritual is to life. And you mentioned earlier, I assume you mentioned it was actually sorry, I haven't read your book, but it was in the publicity materials, about the fact that it's a ceremony where you come in one way, and after a few minutes you end up leaving. You come in as two single people, and you end up leaving as a unit. And there's something about that boundary or that passage. I just think that's profoundly human and also really important.
Well, you have to ask yourself, she comes in as a bride, but leaves as a wife. He comes in as a groom, but leaves as a husband. And it's not me or the state of Texas that makes that happen. It's a God thing. And here's the kicker. Everyone that's turned up dressed in their finest, they all know why they're there. They all know what's going to happen. But when it happens, there are tears, there are applaud. I mean, the place goes wild like it's New Year's Eve when they kiss at the end. And sometimes I follow up with the groom and say, hey, what was that first kiss like as husband and wife? And the general response is, it was like I kissed her for the first time. And my kicker is this. Well, of course, you've never kissed your wife before. And if it's true for the kiss, then it's absolutely true for everything that follows that. And I won't take that conversation any further. But this is the loving creator God that does something transforming, and it makes people cry, laugh, cheer. It's a wonderful transforming experience.
So forgive me for asking, but in the Anglican Church, when you do communion, in the Catholic Church, I know in communion, when the priest blesses the wine and the bread, it's supposed to literally become the body and blood of Christ. Is that true in the Anglican Church? I think I was raised an Episcopalian, and if I'm right, in the Episcopal Church, it is just symbolic, I think, right? Am I correct about that?
It is true for the Roman Catholics that it becomes the body of Christ. And in the Anglican Church, there is a consecration of the bread and wine, which sets it apart. That's what it means, just to be set apart and to consecrate it before God, to give it to God. There is mystery in that.
That's why I brought it up. I wanted you to.
You are eating bread, you are drinking wine, but in some way, that is the body and blood of Christ, not as the Roman Catholics believe. That's transubstantiation. This is more consubstantiation. It's some way in, on, around that bread and wine. It is now consecrated to God. And when you receive it by faith, everything that Christ crucified has afforded us, forgiveness of sins, a peace of mind, direction, purpose, all of those things. I encourage folk that when they come to the table of the Lord, approach with childlike faith, and whatever Christ does with you as you receive is none of my business. That's between you and God.
And the reason I brought this up is because talking about ritual, do you consider that a ritual, or is that something more than that?
No, it in cultural terms, it is a ritual. It is a ceremony. In the same way that the Chinese, when they make a cup of tea and pour you a cup of tea, it's not like we do it. There's great ritual and ceremony to it. There's meaning and purpose conveyed. So I wrote a book on that called the Experiencing the Body and Blood of Christ, with the parenthesis of communicating biblical truth to late millennials and Gen Z. That the retelling of the redemptive story is done through liturgy, words and actions, and we are reminded that Christ died for us. So in an Anglican church, Christ literally is the center of everything. The sermon is about 20 minutes long, which is good. And liturgy simply means the work of the people. And so it's very participatory. And I love that. I love that interaction with the people.
And the thing about ritual, to me anyway, repetition in human life is very important. I mean, people go to church every Sunday. I don't know in your church if you do communion every Sunday, but the thing is you do it on a regular basis. And there's something about repetition. I'm a musician too, so I mean, obviously, music is basically based on repetition. I mean, it is, and there's something about repetition in human life that basically substantiates, not to use that word incorrectly. It just substantiates our existence. I mean,
it does. And in a busy week where you've got 10,000 voices competing for your attention, it is good on a Sunday. In the Anglican tradition, it is scripture, tradition, and history. It is scripture first. That's our authority. The tradition, things that have been handed down to us, like the practice of Holy Communion from the upper room of Jesus, and also history. We appreciate that we didn't invent the church. Jesus did on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. So on these three things, the Anglican church is ordered. And I come from a Pentecostal background. And a number of years ago, I came into the priesthood of the Anglican church, pastor to priest. And it seems a lot of young adults now are becoming drawn to the retelling of the redemptive story of forgiveness, to be whole, to be made, and also a mental well-being. That when Jesus appeared to the disciples, the first thing he said in their distress was, "Peace be with you." And so throughout the service, as you know, the priest will say, "The peace of the Lord with you," and the congregation will respond, "And with your spirit. The Lord be with you, and with your spirit." When you read the scriptures, the word of the Lord, thanks be to God. And so there's that touchstone once a week of scripture and tradition is very important in the busy, distracting world that we live in.
Why do you think there's so many people now? It seems like in the last 25 years or so, there's more and more people in culture that seem to find life kind of meaningless. And it'd be easy for me to say that they've lost God in their lives. And I don't know if it's as simple as that, or is it more than that? Can you, do you have any idea about this?
I do. And I would say, I could say it now in my life. Now I'm older. As you get older, your perspective changes. It doesn't diminish. It just becomes more and more clarified. I think for most of my adult life, what's true in England is true here as well. There's an obsession and it even comes from the church, in finding your purpose. You know, if you fall in love with someone and you marry them, that's a huge purpose right there. And it's bound up in vows and duty and pledges and everything. Why would a man then seek something else out other than his wife? Why would he not see another woman? And if God blesses you with children, there are responsibilities that come with that. And for the first 2 years, you're not going to sleep. And the obsession with finding my purpose, and you look at a man and you think, she's your purpose. Those kids are your purpose. You've got a job. You could balance a checkbook. All of that is purpose. I think there's an indulgence in finding purpose. And what we're seeing now on social media more than anything is, you know, you work so many years for the man and you get a few more years left. What's the point? Work is good. Work is healthy. And if you want to start work at the beginning of your life, it's going to be an entrance level job. You're not going to have six figures. You're not going to have an expense account. Your sphere of influence is going to be quite small, and you're going to get fired a few times before you actually find out what you're good at. And statistically, that's about 30 years of age. Finding purpose, I think, is more practically done in what am I good at and how can I earn a living from it. Everything else, you just got to open your eyes and it's there right before you. I've just taken 2 days by the lake. We rented a house and I was fishing with my 3 little granddaughters, and one of them caught a fish for the first time. It was beautiful. My purpose in that moment is I'm grandpa, and I exaggerate and embellish. The fish was this big, but I tell them it was this big. This obsession of purpose. Look around you and you'll find what your purpose really is.
Do you think we're becoming too, that part of this, the problem here is that we've actually become too affluent as a culture? I mean, there's a lot of money floating around all over the place, and people seem, you're talking about the value of work, but people seem to have to work less and less. And do you think that's a problem? I mean, let me context this. My cousin was the timpanist for the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, one of the most famous musicians in the world. He retired at 2014, and 2 years later he was dead. And my friend says, yeah, because all men who retire die in 2 years. It's almost like, he was driven by his work, and a lot of people are, and it's like now if people seem to, some ways they have to work less, or they don't.
You hear it in job interviews. The balance of work life. What's my life and what's my work? Employers my age don't want to hear that. Employers want to know, can you collaborate? Can you problem solve? Are you qualified? Yeah. And I was raised that you do whatever it takes to make your way in your career, and it's going to be hard work. It's going to be burning the candle at both ends. No one is handed that on a plate. My concern is if you remove that earlier on in life, energetic, hustling, enthusiastic, entrepreneurial way, you won't have much to live on near the end of your life. And you'll have what we're seeing in New York and in the city of Seattle, these socialist models that say the government will look after me. I'm sorry, it won't. Is the scriptures say, unless a man works, he doesn't eat. And if you read scripture correctly, before sin came into the world, Adam had work to do. He was to keep that Garden of Eden. He was to have dominion over it with his wife. He was to rule over it and work it. And interestingly enough, the curse that came to Adam was that, with sweat and labor, you will toil, thorns and thistles. And at the end of a man's corporate life, the most important thing is his family, not his career. So it comes back to a balance. How do we find a balance? I think the younger generation has something to teach us about this work-life balance. And we must be listening. But you cannot eliminate that season of life of doing whatever it takes before marriage, before kids, to make your way.
you've written a book also called Cultural Clarity, and this fascinates me. And also, you're the CEO of a consulting firm, and your book is about the fact that you say you found certain cultural dysfunctional patterns in organizations, and this fascinates the heck out of me, Andrew, because I've always what's the difference between a functional organization and a dysfunctional organization? Because we all see them. I mean, I know the ones that work well and the ones that don't work well, and I've always tried to figure out what happened there in the one that got off track. What happened in the culture there to make that happen? Have you come to any conclusions?
I have. My PhD is in intercultural studies, and I was listening over a number of years to members of the church in the congregation who left a company and worked for another company for a little bit less money. And that seemed to be repeated again and again and again, which speaks to our previous point of work-life balance. Is now it's not all about the money. It is quite something else. So you hear phrases like toxic environment or toxic leadership or overbearing HR and things like that. So I put together this book. It begins in the Dickensian period where there's a lot of humor used, but it takes you through steps of how to define and implement a culture within your organization, be it a school district, or be it a church or a corporation or a firm or a real estate brokerage like we have. A culture is the values of everyone there that are lived out, that don't need to be written on the wall. You can actually see it live through their lives. It's like looking down a funnel, a clear funnel. The distortion of culture is when that funnel has twists and turns. You can no longer see a definitive end to it. So I was hired by a construction company to come and figure out what was not working in their huge company. And from that, I got referred to others, title companies, other organizations, to help them find what is it that's stifling our growth. Why do people leave us and join a smaller company, even though we offer more of a salary? What is it about environment? And when you analyze it in an emotionless way, I'm not invested in the company, they're hiring me, I can navigate them through a few things that are glaringly wrong, but are not massive building blocks. For instance, in this one construction company, they had 4 branches. They had millwork, wood, they had metalwork, they had stonework, and they also had their installers. Well, the guy in the millwork over that department, I interviewed him, and it was obvious he should not be working for someone. He should have his own company. The way he's wired, there's nothing wrong with him. It was just a square peg in a round hole. I helped his exit strategy and to start his company. The employer filled that position and the company boomed. It's not looking for bad people and coming down on them. It's looking for how it all works together.
Did you find that there's some common themes that happen over and over again in the, are there a few common denominators to the dysfunction?
There's the illegitimate power that is in any organization. They don't have the title, the office, they don't have the position, but they wield great power. There's also nepotism as well. The family of the boss, that can be huge, problematic, especially in religious organizations. Who's the boss? Is it the pastor or is it his wife? And what about his children? Are they the heirs apparent, or have we now neglected the interview process? And so you see that in the megachurch, and then people leave by droves because they feel this has become something other than a church. School districts, again, very, very important. If you get a principal in a school that has an agenda, it will trickle down all the way through to the janitor. And if you really want to know what's going on, interview the janitor. They got nothing to lose. And of course, there's non-disclaimers and everything they write or sign up for. So I enjoy that. It comes and goes. Probably about 7 clients a year. But all of that is cross-pollinating in my life. It's all people.
Yeah. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you. I hope you'll come back in sometime. Matter of fact, when your book actually comes out, I'd like to have you on again. Okay.
Wonderful. I mean, people can go to the landing page.
Do you know the address? Because they didn't send it to me.
Truthintheageofapplause.com.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm sorry I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I would have put it up on the screen here. Truthintheageofapplause.com.
That's it.
Right. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. Really, I've enjoyed this immensely.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.